Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, we are off to Cleveland. Probably not for the first time, but maybe. I've lost track. You know, Cleveland is a place I've heard both positive and negative things about. So let's see if this old video, gives us a definitive conclusion about that. I feel like the story might lean one way though. This is the story of a life. The life of a man named Anthony Sowell. And it is quite the story. Messed up would be the best word, no two ways about it. Interesting in a, HE double hockey sticks, how could this happen kind of way. And that is something we will get into by, giving it a go. In from windy Lake Erie in East Cleveland lies an avenue, Imperial. It's in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood of Cleveland, a residential area counting roughly 17,000 people. The age range fairly low, income much the same. It's an area fighting for, redevelopment and renewal. Because certain things happened there over 10 years ago you kinda wanna forget. And if you go to Imperial Avenue on the 12200 block beside Ray's, you'll see an empty lot. Wasn't always so. What once stood there was a house of horrors. We say it a lot. Really mean it though. It was on the 29th of October 2009 that the police entered the house that once stood there. Pretty fitting they did it then, because what they found inside was quite scary. Get me fresh underwear. That kind of scary. The neighbours of that house and others living on the avenue had been complaining about it for years. Complaining because there was a foul odour coming from that house. Eventually, 11 women who disappeared would be found inside that house. And I'm talking, they were found in the garden, in the basement, inside the walls, in the bedrooms, where the person who lived in that house Sodwood.
What happened in this house behind me is simply a nightmare, and there are a lot of deeply disturbing questions for authorities here. There were 6 bodies found in this house last week. This morning, we know there are more.
We discovered 4 additional, what we believe to be 4 bodies. It appears that this man had a insatiable appetite that he had to fill.
All murdered by a man who lived amongst them. That man being Anthony Sowell. He was known as the nice, courteous, friendly tone to neighbours, but later he would be known as the Cleveland Strangler, if you can believe that. Now let's go back. Anthony Sowell was born in 1959, raised in East Cleveland, where he will live again later. His upbringing was not good. He grew up in a big house on Page Avenue, and that was just another one of those house of horrors, so he was used to them. If you're looking to see, why people are kind of the way that they are, right? In Sowell's case, you would just say, point, look at that. He grew up with cousins, nieces, nephews, mother and grandmother. His mother and his grandmother would abuse the kids, stripping them and beating them till they bled while the other children watched. Sexual assault between the 10 children in the house was an everyday occurrence. When he was 19 years old, he escaped. He joined the Marine Corps, where he would remain for 7 years, being based in North Carolina, California, and Okinawa, Japan. In the Marines, he fit in like a glove. It turns out that growing up with in a strict and abusive household it came in handy for him there anyway. He was said to have performed exceptionally well there in the Marines and garnered numerous awards. But, when he left the Marines in the mid-80s, honorably discharged, things went downhill. Or his life became an uphill struggle, whichever way you want to do it. He needed that structure, discipline. Otherwise, idle hands, something. He would be, and up to, no good. The drink and the drugs took hold of the man. He returned to East Cleveland, unemployed, addicted, and angry. This would culminate in 1989 with a pregnant woman ending up in Anthony's house, where he tied her up, gagged her, and attacked her. Anthony was then arrested for rape and kidnapping, right? But by that stage, 3 women who lived on the same street as Anthony, 3 women had been found murdered, and those cases are still unsolved to this day. Anthony Sowell pled guilty to the charges, and in September 1990, he was sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison. He would be evaluated by psychologists a number of times. You gonna do it again? Not at all. Anthony, by all accounts, was a very charming, likable guy. The worst traits for a predator to have. He was classed in the lowest tier of sex offenders, so he wouldn't have to, knock on doors, and he could slip in a little easier into the wider community. During his time there, he repeatedly applied for and was denied parole. He wasn't let out until he served the whole thing, which was in the year 2005. That same year, he moved into the house on Imperial Avenue. A house which, not long after, he moved in, the woman who lived right smack dab across the road, she started complaining to City Hall about the smell. A smell which she said was either gas or something dead. Anthony worked at a rubber factory for a time, got on grand there, no complaints, as usual. No complaints until there were police ones, and a number of women started disappearing in East Cleveland. Anthony got into a relationship with a woman named Lori, and this in turn spiraled him into a crack addiction. By all accounts, Anthony was mad about her until, in 2007, Anthony lost his job at the rubber factory, and Lori wanted to get away from drugs, so she left. Anthony wasn't feeling the same. He was happy out there, and so he stayed on Imperial Avenue. But her leaving would be a trigger for him. Like, it was the straw that broke the dog's hump over the edge, or something. Shit got worse. 1 month after Lori left, never to return, Crystal Dozier vanished. Crystal was 35 years old, mother of 7 kids, but after one of her children sadly passed away, she became addicted to drugs. One day she was there, the next she wasn't. In June 2008, Tishana Culver, 33 years old, nursing assistant, but had also struggled with drugs, she disappeared. As she came and went, she was never reported missing. 2 months later, Lashonda Long, 25 and a mother of 3, she disappeared. Michelle Mason was 45 years old. She had 2 sons and was volunteering with the local AIDS task force. In October 2008, she vanished. 1 month after that, in November 2008, 52-year-old Tanya Carmichael, who had taken classes at community college, had a real estate license, she vanished. Her mother reported her missing in early December 2008, worried what could have happened to her, but, well, nothing happened. And the smell didn't get better. Anthony would say, Anthony himself, he stank of it, right? And so when he'd go over to like his sister's house or friends' houses or was around other people just generally, they'd be like, what the shit is that? He would say it was a sausage store next door. That stinks like death. When inspectors from City Hall, after so many complaints, went down there to see what the crack was, they couldn't determine what it was either. So yeah, the City Hall inspectors, they said, yeah, it's probably the sausage place Ray's too. Pigs or whatever. Sausages, though delicious, shouldn't smell like that. They forced the owners of Ray's to essentially get their shit together, to remove the smell, vents, proper airflow, all that, you had to get rid of the smell. Cause I know what I'm talking about, yeah, vents, that'll do. So they did, and the owner coughed up 30 grand to try and get rid of the smell. Nothing changed. Anthony, to fund his own addiction and fund it for his victims, he began to just wander around, becoming a scrapper. He's looking for bits of metal he could sell to get more drugs. And he would lure a number of women into his home, torturing them horrifically assaulting them for hours and hours at a time. Sometimes they would leave, sometimes they would escape, and sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes they would, report this to police. Other times they wouldn't. But no follow-up was ever done. And a police file was never made. And nobody started, getting a map with dots and red string to try and see, oh wow, there's a lot of missing women around Imperial Avenue. Maybe we should look into that. Nah. Again, in early December 2008, a woman, for example, she ran to the police who were parked up in the neighborhood, bleeding and screaming, saying Anthony had beaten her, dragged her as she was walking by into his house, choked her and tried to rape her. Police went to the stinky house, arrested him, but as they both told, different stories, Anthony said she tried to rob him and they both had scratches and marks, the police didn't know who to believe, and so they arrested them both, later releasing them both due to insufficient evidence. And a month later, Kim Smith, who was a caretaker for her father, at age 44, she disappeared. That is in January 2009. 5 more women would disappear in 2009. Nancy Cobb, Imelda Hunter, Janice Webb, Talacia Fortson, and Diane Turner. All vanished without a trace. And as you'll see, time and time again, the community took notice of what was happening and all these women disappearing in this very small area. And so they started, organizing searches, handing out flyers. Anthony helped, which all but takes us up to October 2009, when a woman named Shawn Morris, she popped into Anthony's. Obviously, she did not mind the smell, and she just hung out with him. They had a few drinks together, had a little bit of drugs, shot the shit, nothing sexual happened at all. Just ended up talking all night long. The next morning, she went to leave, and she realized her ID, she had left it upstairs. So as she was walking up the stairs, she heard from behind her, click. He ran up after her, attacked her out of nowhere. He then sexually assaulted her, and after that he went through the house, locking doors and windows. He wasn't planning on letting her go anytime soon. But at this point, she saw her moment to escape, and jumped out the 3rd-story window. Anthony ran down after her, completely bollock naked also, to try and bring her back into the house. 2 people happened to be passing by though, and they called 911. Shawn was taken to hospital. She had a ridiculous number of broken bones. She fell about 30 feet. She didn't talk to the police about it, though. But someone else did, about a week later. On the 27th of October, a woman spoke of an ordeal she herself had been through with Mr. Soul. It had happened in September. She had, like before, she went in to have a drink in his place, and he flipped into something else. She, however, was lucky enough to survive, but she didn't want to speak to anyone about what she had been through. That is, until late October. An arrest warrant and search warrant were issued for Anthony Soul. On the 29th of October, SWAT kicked in his door. They were looking for Anthony. They found a lot more. Anthony wasn't there at the time. The stench was overpowering though. Dead flies everywhere. Everywhere else were decomposing bodies. Some of them had been there for years. Anthony living with them. And they kept finding body after body after body. A bolo was out for Anthony. Manhunt was on. It was on the 31st of October, just as he was randomly walking down the street. Cops pull over, put cuffs on him. He had like branches and bits of dirt on him. It looked like he'd been sleeping in the bushes or something for a few days.
It's gotta be right. It's gotta be right before we finish this up.
You can't make nothing happen that I'm trying my best, man.
I know what you're saying, but
okay, well,
God,
see, every time I get you think like I can just, and everything is so, it's not clear like that.
Why isn't it?
I don't know.
It's the most significant thing that has ever happened to you in your life. In your 50 years of living, 6 dead bodies are very, very significant. They are like concrete, like glue. They're stuck. They're not going nowhere for the rest of your life. You know they're going to be there forever.
It's hard for us to believe you don't know what happened. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what you believe. I came up here
so
and try to help y'all.
No, you're not, but you're not.
Okay, because I can't tell you exactly what you want to hear. Okay, well,
how do you think you can help us then?
to help you try to identify these people. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what you say you want. So forget it.
He wasn't especially helpful during the interviews, though he said whatever he may have done, it was done when he blacked out.
You see you doing something with your hands, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what you doing with your hands? You having a good time. Party.
I think I choked somebody. That's all I know. That's all I feel. Yes.
You feel that you choked somebody,
right.
But you don't know how many people you choked. Well, I'll tell you what. If the dream told you to choke her, and you choked her, that damn dream is over when you start hauling that damn dirt up there, putting it on the damn body.
Police believe that they were murdered by this man, Anthony Sowell, a convicted rapist who had been living in the house. 5 of the bodies have been identified as women. Police say they were strangled.
I didn't feel safe. There's something telling me, don't go in this house.
Eventually, 11 women's bodies were found in Anthony Sowell's house. All had been strangled to death, and he was charged with 11 counts of aggravated murder and 74 counts of rape, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse.
We're here to announce an 85-count indictment against Anthony Sowell, who was responsible for Cleveland's heinous crimes. A Cuyahoga County grand jury has returned an indictment against this monster for brutalizing 3 women, 2 who've been raped, and murdering 11 more. Sowell preyed upon vulnerable females, luring them into his house. Once inside, he tormented them, threatened them, and assaulted them. He murdered 11 of them.
He pleaded not guilty. Good luck. More survivors would come forward and additional charges would be filed against them. That thing would begin in June 2011. The trial of the Cleveland Strangler. It would last over a month. As I said, Anthony pleaded not guilty. Well, firstly, it was not guilty by reason of insanity, and then plain old not guilty. He would, during his own testimony, blame what he had done on a heart attack he had suffered, which led him to develop, voices in his head, I guess, as you do.
I'm a good chess player. I play on the internet. Well, I used to play on the internet all the time. My game, I could not win a chess game after this heart attack. I just stopped playing. I could not win a game.
How were your emotions?
Well, I was depressed. Mood swings. It's just all kind of, so I don't know. I can't even explain. I was just feeling sad and lonely and stuff all the time,
Was there a point in time after the heart attack you started hearing voice?
Yes.
Did you give that voice a name?
I didn't give it a name. It had a name.
It had a name.
Yes.
What was the name?
Arnie.
Did Arnie speak to you?
Yes.
Anthony, you know why you're here, obviously.
Correct.
Is there anything you want to say to families and victims in this case?
Well, the only thing I want to say is that I'm sorry. I know that might not sound like much, but I truly am sorry from the bottom of my heart. This is not typical of me. I don't know what happened. I can't explain it. But I know it's not a lot, but that's all I can give you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
He told me, he said, "You don't deserve what I'm about to do to you." He said, "You don't deserve what I'm about to do to you." And it was all bad after that.
As you walk to the bathroom, Did you notice anything about the room on the left?
It looked like it was a body, and it had no hand on it. He said, "You gonna tell?" He wasn't talking to me. He was just talking. You gonna tell? I know you gonna tell. You know, at first he wasn't talking to me. He kept, "You gonna tell? I know you gonna tell." And I said, "Tell what?" I said, "What is there to tell?"
There was also pretty shocking testimony from surviving victims. And in the end, the verdict was, well, the obvious. Guilty, true, and true. He was sentenced to death. The House of Horrors was demolished. Nothing stands there today, and maybe nothing ever should. Well, the only thing I think that should is what does. Since about a month ago, talking autumn 2021, a memorial was unveiled, Garden of 11 Angels, remembering the 11 women that had been taken from their families. Over the years Anthony appealed, the Ohio Supreme Court given a good old womp womp for Tony each time. Until, that is, in January 2021. He began receiving treatment for a terminal illness that he had, and he died on the 8th of February. They never said what the illness was, just that it wasn't COVID related. And so ends the tale of Anthony Sowell, the infamous Cleveland Strangler. It's a story like a lot of others, predator, serial killer, taking advantage of those most vulnerable around him. People who, if they vanished, there wouldn't be a big deal made. Which is the saddest part of all these stories. And so the story, and so it ends with him dying slowly in hospital. I don't know if that's more satisfying or not than him, actually being executed. But I suppose in the end, it doesn't really matter. In the end, his own body didn't want to be associated with him anymore. Get me out of this prick. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this old video with me, as I'm currently a little under the weather. Don't know if you can tell, but I appreciate you watching. If you made it this far, hopefully you did. I'll stop going on now. Thanks again, and please take care of yourselves. Because I love you. Bye again.